So, this is the Oz report for January 27th, 2024. And today, just like last week, we're going to start quickly with packs because you will have noticed that last week was the first time I covered packs in the Oz report. And what happened was immediately as I covered the starter packs, CCP came in and changed the starter packs. So if you want to understand that in detail, you can rewatch my stream. But overall, they did change the platinum pack and the bronze pack a little bit, but the value didn't change all that much. They changed some SP, the bronze pack, and took it from direct SP to serial accelerator. On the platinum pack, they changed some Plex into skill extractors, but overall the value didn't change all that much. So it's not a massive change where you have to go and do something. One thing they did do this week is they pulled the starter pack and the weekend fleet pack from the stores. That's because the Vanguard playtest is going on, and I'm guessing they're not going to want to people to give people an opportunity to subscribe very short term and just play the playtest. They want you to subscribe long term, and so those packs are gone. So just be aware of that. Now, let's jump into the Oz report proper. And what we're going to be doing is we are going to have a look at Plex and Plex adjacent items first. All right. As always, let's have a look at Plex. Plex really unchanged over the last few months. There isn't much happening. There isn't much to talk about. Large skill injectors, they are on the rise again in the last few weeks. So that's interesting. Skill farming profit is around 700 million per account per month. It has been sort of stuck there. While you're seeing skill extractor prices increase, you're also seeing skill injector prices increase. So the profit stays around the same. It seems to be a comfortable area where it's fairly stable. So you can assume that skill injectors will react due to increased or decreased demand, and that's where most of the prices are coming from. If it's not coming directly from the increase of skill extractors, which has pretty much reached 500 million. It's possible that we will see skill extractors go over 500 million. However, as I just mentioned, the new platinum pack does include 10 skill extractors for free, so that might put a little bit of a dent in there. But so far, we don't see that at all. Skill extractors are doing great. What we could be seeing is another sale coming in. We haven't seen that in a very, very long time. For new CCP standards, we haven't seen that in a long time. So it's quite possible that they have another Plex or skill extractor sale coming up, which would, of course, then drop the skill extractor price down. So I continue to liquidate my skill extractor stash. As you guys know, our Delta fund is holding over 1 trillion of them, so I need to be selling them all the time. I don't buy them anymore just because I'm on the CSM and I'm under NDA, so I'm not really engaged in large scale trading anymore. But if there is a 2-for-1 sale or there's a 50% Plex off sale, then obviously you guys know what to do. You buy skill extractors because that's been a huge moneymaker in the past. Let's quickly look at Master at Arms cerebral accelerators. This is the best SP per ISK way to gain skill points in most situations right now. Those are still trading around between 80 and 85 million. Very good price. So we are seeing them rise, but I still think this is a good investment, especially if you're buying them on buy price. Now, today I want to look a little bit into ships in EVE Online because we want to look at some of the ships that are spiking in price and why they're spiking in price. So if you look at largest supply drop, for example, let's start with the Guardian, right? The Guardian, you can see the Guardian's been rising in price since the beginning in January, like very steeply, but there hasn't really been added demand on it that you see here. It's not increased volume really, like. So why is that? Why is the Guardian increasing so sharply, and why is the Guardian almost gone from the market? If you look at the available stuff in JITA, it's almost gone. So in order to explore that, you have to go into the Eve cookbook, right? If you go into something like Eve cookbook and look at the Guardian blueprint, right? Then you can see that a Guardian blueprint, it depends to it's 50% made out of promethium, right? This is one raw material that makes up about 50% of a Guardian, right? And what does that mean? That means that if we look at what's going on in the game and we look at promethium prices, we can see that, oh, interesting, promethium prices started rising in October. They started rising sharply in November, and in December they just took off. Right? This is a good lesson for investing in EVE Online. Obviously, this was a long-term trend of rising demand for promethium, increased production using promethium, and or reduced availability of promethium. Either way, the price started rising, and it has been steadily high since January. So the Guardian prices were lagging. In November, we were still seeing Guardian prices dropping fairly sharply, and now, starting at the beginning of January, we're seeing that price rise pretty sharply. Something else we can look at is the Golem, for example. This is very interesting because the Golem, you would say, hey, look, the Golem hasn't really spiked in price, right? Now, why are we talking about the Golem? We're talking about the Golem because the Golem has actually dropped in supply significantly. The Golem, if you look at the trade volume per day, it's around 50, and most of them are sell orders, right? Right now, there's only about 20 to 30 out there. There's only 20 to 30 Golems for sale in JITA, which isn't a lot. And then you look at the price and you say 1.5 billion. Okay, that is high, but it's not insanely high. If we go back to Eve Cookbook, for example, and we look at, so what's the Golem made out of? Then pretty quickly, you can see that the Golem is made out of dysprosium by a large portion, right? So there's about 270 million dysprosium in a Golem. Excuse me, my voice is a little bit still under the weather from having a cold. So if we go back to the game now and we look at dysprosium, same pattern as we saw with promethium, but even more extreme, right? So right here you can see that starting in October, dysprosium started rising, and in December, similarly, it started spiking, right? Now, dysprosium, what's made out of it is mostly, where is it? The non-linear metamaterials, okay? So think of dysprosium as the raw material and non-linear metamaterials as the intermediate good that this is reacted into. We call that advanced moon materials. That's where you have the non-linear metamaterials, and those have in turn also spiked in price. All right, and just to show that, since we're talking about that today, I can put into Eve Cookbook the non-linear metamaterials, and here we see right there a big chunk, over 60%, 70% here is actually dysprosium. All right, so we take dysprosium, we turn it into nonlinear metamaterials, and they end up as golems. Now, a big chunk of nonlinear metamaterials is dysprosium, and a big chunk of the golem is nonlinear metamaterials. So if these prices have been spiking this sharply, then why hasn't the golem? Now, for one, the golem is a little bit less dependent on nonlinear metamaterials than the Guardian is on promethium, but we should see this spike a little harder. So I do expect golem prices to still be rising because we haven't seen them rise very sharply. That in combination with a drop in supply is a significant sign for golem prices to be rising in the upcoming weeks. And I'm doing this today because we're seeing all of these interesting connections in the market today. This week, we see golem prices We see Golem supply dropping. We see Guardian prices dropping, and Golem supply dropping and prices rising. We're also, by the way, seeing Legion prices dropping. Legion supply dropping really sharply and prices rising. So a bunch of these ships are becoming more rare because the raw material prices are increasing, and a lot of them are due to spike in price. So if you're listening to this live, or at least semi-live, then it's worth checking these out, because there's definitely some movement going on there. Another interesting one is the Raven Navy issue. The Raven Navy issue, actually, if you look at the Raven Navy issue, it was trading too cheap compared to the LP price or the manufacturing price with the blueprint bought by LP. So we have had a price correction here. This was trading between 550 and 600 million. The new Raven Navy issue price is over 700 million, and it's also basically gone from the market. If you look at here, the Raven Navy issue trades at about 20, 25 a day, and there's only, I don't know, 10, 12 left in the JITA market. So Raven Navy issue, another one that has been bought out and is increasing in price. But this is probably not going to drop down very quickly, because the LP conversion rate is just not as attractive. So this just had it coming based on the LP exchange rate that wasn't great. So this price correction had to happen. Now, that was a little bit of a deep dive into raw materials, ship prices, etc. And to talk about some of the things that we're seeing underpriced, let's see here. Pretty much the same as last week, right? We're still seeing Zydrine quite cheap, still probably a good investment. Worms, here the BPC prices dropped, so those are probably going to stay there. The Providence had their BPC changed, so that's not a good investment right now. It's just a manufacturing price change. Same on the Fenrir. And then yes, Fortizars. Fortizars are rather cheap right now. Very interesting. The 9 billion has been the bottom all year. So possibly Fortizars may be a very good investment right now. And then we're seeing Caldari Navy Admiral insignias. Said this before many times. I like underpriced insignias, because they always come back at some time, because always some item in the LP store is going to be interesting. Some faction warfare map is going to be flipped, and these will change in value. So whenever you're looking at these very seasonal items, something like a faction insignia is a good place to go. So maybe Caldari Navy Admiral Insignia 1s are a good thing right now. One thing I do want to mention is that some of the ships that were spiking last week are coming back down. So specifically the Triglavian ships, you can see the Kikimora, the Nurgle, they've both corrected back down from spikes last week, and that's because we're also seeing Triglavian raw materials, so crystalline isogen 10 is coming back down in price. They were spiking. So let's see. Let's actually have a look real quick to make this complete. They were spiking hard, and now they're coming back down. Now, one thing about crystalline isogen 10, and also just for to be complete, 0-point condensate is the other one. We've talked about this in the last few weeks. So Triglavian abyssal materials, they have been rising because there's been less people running abyssals, because there's a lot of events going on. Now, this hasn't been completely corrected. These are still at very, very expensive prices. It still makes running abyssals very profitable. If you're stockpiling these, it's time to sell them, right? I don't think the trend has been reversed, especially because this drop right here in crystalline isogen, this looks to me like somebody's liquidating assets. It's not necessarily looking to me like immediately more people have been running the abyssals, because we don't see the same trend in 0-point condensate. All right. So that's the Oz report for today. Excuse my voice again. For January 27th, 2024. We're going to return to the regular stream and see you on the Oz report next week. Although I will be traveling to Iceland for the CSM summit, so I don't know what format the Oz report is going to be having, but we're definitely going to be live from Iceland, from CCP headquarters next week, probably more than once. Probably with some guests. Maybe we'll have some CSM guests on the stream. Maybe we'll have some CCP devs on the stream. Probably a mixture of everything. So I hope you guys join us next week. A week from today is when I am flying to Iceland, and I'm staying for a week, Sunday to Sunday, and I can't wait for it. All right. See you guys next week.